You walk away and you think you're a good man, and Gevalt, you did something good. It's so much deeper than that. It's about 2 billion times deeper. This is unbelievable. You know how much time we waste? I mean, I don't know about you, I know about me. Also, I'm wasting 90% of my time. You know how much nonsense we talk? We're wasting words. So Rav Nachman says the first thing is when you give tzedakah, this is mamish helping you not to waste words and not to waste time. Because you know we are wasting money also, right? Most probably 80% of the money also is wasted. So when I give my money for tzedakah, and something happens, Mama's Moshe pays me back, then I shouldn't waste my words, and I shouldn't waste my time. Go on. And then something else. When you talk Lashon Hara, besides you shouldn't say bad things about another person. You're wasting your words, right? Wasting your energy. It's a waste of time and a waste of energy, right? So you stop talking Lashon Hara. I hope so. And also something else. One of the most terrible things of this is arrogance. Arrogance means that I'm the most important person in the world. When I give tzedakah, it helps me to realize there are also other people on this planet. Walk and give a person tzedakah. I'm not the only person in the world. Then this is what the Gemara says already, not only Rav Nachman. Whatever you give for tzedakah, God gives it back to you. But the way God gives it back, God is not petty. You give $1, He gives you back 1,000. You give 1,000, He gives you back 1,000,000. We learn later in Yerodea. Shlomo says it never happened yet that a person got poor because he gave too much stuff. Maybe I got poor because I bought too many beautiful furniture and I couldn't pay. Then yes. But I never get poor because I gave too much stuff.
Hello. Good morning. Hold on. Okay, you're on.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
We want to get the new schedule from you because we didn't know that the learning was happening this morning.
Okay. We'll
What
take care.
forum do we need?
What?
What's forum?
You're there.
Shlomo Yerodea, Hilchos Tzedakah.
Shlomo can't hear you at all.
Can you hear me now, brother?
Much better.
Maximum.
Tell me when
That's
we're learning.
maximum. Okay, good.
Okay, we're learning schon auch Hilchos Tzedakah.
You know, it sounded like you said Shulchan Aruch Perek Sukkah. What's that?
Shulchan Aruch Yerodea,
Yeah.
Hilchos Tzedakah.
Hilchos.
Tzedakah, something which you and I need all the time, a little bit tzedakah.
Shlomo, your voice is vibrating so much. Sounds like a basketball.
Okay.
Hilchos Tzedakah, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
More or less, or just more?
It's much better now than it was before, but it needs to be more of whatever you did.
Okay, what are we going to do?
Now that was perfect.
Now it's
Okay,
good.
good.
Back to Takes to warm up a little bit, this machine.
Okay. Yerodea, where?
Hilchos Tzedakah.
Hilchos Tzedakah. Okay, I'll go get it.
What right this minute I'm learning a little bit from the Lekutey Aitzot on tzedakah, just to warm our hearts.
Okay.
Oh, this is very important. Before you go on a trip, you have to give tzedakah, and then it'll help you that the trip should go smooth. Or let's put it this way, the more smooth it goes in your heart to give tzedakah, the more smoother it will be. You know, if I have to fight my way to my pocket until I find $1 in my pocket, and then I think maybe I should really only give $50, and then I think quarter is also enough. You know the famous joke. It's good to know, but anyway, maybe one person don't know. This Hidale goes over a bridge, and the bridge begins to shock a little bit. So he says, God, I'm giving $100 for Israel. So the bridge stops shocking. He walks. He thinks, why did he say 100? For 25 I could have gotten it also. So I begins to shock it again. And so he says, God, I'm only joking. You know? You see, if I think 100 times, should I give $1, should I give $50, then that tzedakah will not make my life or my trip more smooth. You see someone, and it's a smooth road, that's the way your trip will be, hopefully. This is also very important. It is a bit heartbreaking because, I don't know. It says, you know, everything which is the world is chokhmas chitzonius. They understand the outside. The Torah is called chokhmah pnimis, inside, right? On the outside, there is really no reason why should I give tzedakah. I will walk down the street, I look at the person and say, listen, why don't you get a job, right? On everybody who's into chokhmas chitzonius, right? Why is the world, they have so much trouble in giving tzedakah, right? And something else, you see? Our Tzeda Avraham Avinu 4,000 years ago was on a higher level of tzedakah than humanity is today. Miraculously, I found one. Huh? No, not right. Shlomo here also? So maybe you share it with somebody. Okay, sit down, brother, whatever.
Sorry.
You know the difference between outside and inside is very simple. Outside says, whatever you see, that's what it is. Inside says, you don't know nothing yet. What do you know? Because suddenly you see a person happily laughing and you say, this person is happy, right? But if you have a little insight, I don't know, you might be the most broken person in the world. So he says, Rav Nachman says, when you give tzedakah, that helps you, hopefully, that God saves you from outside knowledge. The way you look at the world, okay, then the zoichin lahasogas elikus. You cannot have any concept of God when you're an outside person. Only an inside person knows what God is all about. So the more tzedakah you give, the more you have a little concept what God is all about. So one thing, this is awesome. You know, most of the sins, of the mistakes we're doing, we are clever enough to do it secretly, right? I brag about my good deeds, but I'm not bragging about what I do, you know. I say in Yiddish, still I hate, you know, when nobody's looking. You know? So how will I ever fix that? He says, but if I give tzedakah without anybody seeing it, this is when I fix all the mistakes I do without anybody seeing it. Think about it. You know? Remember, we're learning a lot of times. Every person has a little dark underground. You know, the world is the physical, the spiritual, man, the divine, everything is the same. A good house has upper floors, but then even all the way below the foundation of the house is the cellar. Because this is the way God created man also. There's some part of me is open, and then I have a cellar. When do I fix that? I try to hide it. So first of all, so Rav Nachman says when they give tzedakah without being seen. And the second thing is everybody knows by the Heilige Baal Shem, Shalashudis was always when it's dark. You know, by all the big tzaddikim, like first of all it was mamish dark and they kept it up all night. Because Shalashudis is fixing the dark. That means the first two feasts of Shabbos reach only that part of you where light is reaching. Then there is something in underground where light doesn't even reach. But Shalashudis, the third meal of Shabbos, has the power to fix it. It's awesome Torahs, no?
If you put a check in an envelope, that's gonna hate.
Yeah, maybe. Also, something else. Each time you give money to a poor man, you're bringing peace into the world. Because the poor man is angry at the rich, right? There's a bigger war than between the poor and the rich. That is a real war in the world. And each time you give something to a poor, the war is becoming less. That's awesome. Also, when you give tzedakah, the same thing, God saves you from your enemies. Because the poor man is also your enemy, right? At least he thinks you're his enemy. And if you make peace with them, also Moshe helps you that you get rid of your enemies. Okay, now, this is even deeper. Remember Rav Nachman's Torah, the difference between Eretz Yisrael and Chutz La'aretz. You know, all the Rebbes, I'm sure Tzvi knows more about this than I do, you know, especially in Hungary, it was very, very special. Yeah, the Bote Hongarim in Yerushalayim, right? They had Mamish, the Hungarian Gedolim, they were superb in that. Mamish giving tzedakah of Eretz Yisrael. It means every Jew had to give a certain percentage of his income for the poor people in Yerushalayim. They had koilel, you know, there was a lot of things were going on. There are books written on it, like in the last 200 years. It was unbelievable. They had the Hungarian koilel, they had the Polish koilel, and koilel is not what they call today koilel, you know, with people who are married. So koilel means where they were supporting poor people in Yerushalayim, for learning also, but everything. What's in Eretz Yisrael? That's the deepest. And this is, I'm just giving it to you in a nutshell. So, Nachman says, as Moichin, there is the understanding of outside Israel, and there is the understanding of Eretz Yisrael. Outside Israel, the understanding is so full of doubts, like so many conflicts. Even what I understand, I don't understand. And there, I say 1 to 1 is 2, then I think maybe it's 3. Driving me crazy. Let's put it this way. You know, in Talmud Bavli, with all the holiness and beauty, there is a lot of conflict. I mean, holy conflict, right? Abba says so, Abba says something else. Then they ask questions. And Yerushalmi, in the Talmud of Yerushalmi, it's a completely different system. Everything is smooth. Very few questions. And if you ask a question, you don't know the answer. I don't know. Right? You know, and Bavli Mamish says, maybe you can say so, maybe you can say so, maybe you can say so. Because in Eretz Yisrael, the way wisdom is coming down, comes down with so much sweetness that there is no argument. You know, if someone talks to you, when they talk to you, you have to. Then you're really rebelling inside. No, I don't want to, right? Like the way you say it in Chutz La'aretz, it's missing the sweetness of Eretz Yisrael. The Chochmah of Eretz Yisrael is so sweet that, okay, you know, who cares if you're right or wrong, right? It's, I mean, even in the Talmud, I'm sure they're right, you know, but just, it's a completely different kind of approach. So Rav Nachman says, imagine a person's torn apart, you don't know what you do. Then your biggest school is, you get Tzedakah for Eretz Yisrael. Tzedakah for near Eretz Yisrael. You know, I'm just thinking to myself, so how come all those rich people that give money for Israel are so crazy? I mean, I don't want to say anything bad. Obviously, very little of that money ever reaches Israel, first of all. And second, you know, I don't want to say anything bad, but remember after the 6-Day War, someone came and he says, I can build some kind of long line with mines so the Egyptians could never cross Israel, and cost $8 billion. So Sharon says, well, why don't you just put onions there? Have the same effect. So here comes the Yom Kippur War. They just walked right over it because it had no effect. So they wasted $8 billion. The whole thing was a fake, right? A lot of people made a few $1 million. So a person says to God, listen God, they gave money for Israel. So Rav Nachman makes it very clear. It really has to be for the poor people in Israel. It has to be for some real thing. Because the more real it is, the stronger the effect. So Rav Nachman says, why is there so much fighting going on in the world? Because our ideas don't match, right? Let me ask, is it really so terrible if you have a different idea? What's so bad about it? Remember the Kotzker Rebbe says, does it bother you that someone's nose doesn't have the same shape like your nose? You're happy. Imagine this other person would look the same, you'd go crazy, right? So why aren't you happy they have different ideas? Why are you so insisting that everybody has to have the same idea? You know, there's a Gewalt story, the Heilige Woke, you know, the two best friends were a Mendele Kotzker, who was fire, and then Rabbi Yitzchak Woke, you know, in Kotzk, the most important thing is the truth, can't stand fake, and in Woke, the most important thing is to love people. So already completely different ideas, right? But those two were the best friends. But the Chassidim were fighting among themselves. Anyway, so this Kotzker Chassid meets the Woke. And he has the chutzpah to tell him, says to him, he says, when are you becoming a Kotzker Chassid? The Woke says to him, are you so unsure of your Rebbe that you need me to become his chassid to prove to you that your Rebbe is a Rebbe? That's like right? You see, all the people who are so eager that you should do the same thing they're doing is because they're not so sure themselves, right? I don't want to say there's certain chassidim without saying anything bad. Almost they grab you, and if you don't do the same thing, you're already out. Why are you so crazy about it? I don't want to say anything too bad. You know how eager Christianity is for us even to become Christians? Because they know, you know, Something's wrong there, right? It's crazy, right? So they have to prove to themselves, even as Yidden, the Old Testament, we also agree that the New Testament is the real thing, right? You know, I remember I told you, I met this missionary, he says, what is your excuse not to believe in Jesus? I said, I don't need an excuse, you know. You need an excuse, right? I don't need an excuse. Anyway, so Rav Nachman said, all the fighting in the world comes from just one thing. You know what the one thing is? That my head isn't clear. Well, so I'm fighting. But imagine Halabai, you know how heartbreaking this is? That means in Eretz Yisrael, the fighting between the Yidden is because they haven't been privileged yet to receive the Moichin of Eretz Yisrael. Because the real, Moichin, the brain of Israel, is so clear and so smooth that whatever you understand, you don't fight about it. You don't fight about it. So he says, Mamash, if you give tzedakah, Eretz Yisrael, then hopefully God blesses you that you're so connected to Eretz Yisrael that you have a taste and the wisdom and the moichin of Eretz Yisrael. And also something special. The Torah is so sweet. And if you are on the level of receiving the moichin, the brains of the Holy Land, then you have a taste in the sweetness of the Torah. And if, God forbid, all you have, Shabbos, the moichin of Chutz La'aretz, like everything is torn apart. Let's learn one more. Okay, one more thing, friends, very important. He says, don't kid yourself. It's hard work to give tzedakah. It's hard work. Because every person has so many needs, and every penny we think we need for our needs, that it's really hard work to train yourself. It's hard work to train yourself. Mamash to give tzedakah. I remember I was once somewhere and I met this person and he was telling me that he took out his wife tonight, they had a good time, and he spent $300 in this fancy restaurant. Then a poor man passes by. He takes out a quarter. Quarter? How about that? Just a little bit in proportion. A little bit in proportion. I mean, do you know how much training this person needs? How much changing of the inside? You see what it is? For him, his wife, to have good Chinese soup is important. But a person starving on the street is not important. He's doing him a favor, giving him a quarter. But you see what it is like? Rav Nachman says to have the balance of tzedakah. He says, but if you, mamash, train yourself, the goodness which comes out for you, and the reward is infinite. One more thing he says. We have 2,000 obstacles, not only to give tzedakah, but to do anything good in the world. You know, when I want to do something wrong, nobody stops me. The moment I want to do something good, it's already hard, right? Many people were always learning, if I fall in love with a girl who's not my soulmate, nothing stops me. I meet her, I'm married to her the next day. The moment I meet my soulmate, the real thing, there's already 10,000 people against. Maybe she's against, maybe I'm against. You know, Rav Nachman says the biggest obstacle is always me, right? Me, I'm my own biggest obstacle, right? My second biggest obstacle is my friends. Your enemies are never your obstacle. Your enemies are my enemies, right, mother? Your best friends, Gewalt. So what do? So Rav Nachman says, when you train yourself, like a little bit to go against yourself, cleanse yourself. When it comes to tzedakah, that gives you strength to not to let all the obstacles in your way and everything in your life stand in your way.
I'd like to ask you a question.
Yeah, but
Well, I must have lost you for a second. Well, why is that so? That when something good happens to you, your good friends stop you, yourself stop you?
this is mamash a gewalt kasha. And since you are my top man, maybe after you finish your day a little bit, we should learn from Nachman about obstacles. Because I was always thinking this is one of the most important teachings of Nachman. Basically, what Nachman says, the obstacles are there. It should be clear to you how much you really want it. You know, if I had no obstacles at all, everything I want I'm doing, so how will I ever know what I really want, right?
But to what extent?
Mama Shihuri, what did you have for breakfast? That is the deepest question in the world. You see, when is it maybe a sign from God I shouldn't do it? When is it only that God wants me to make it stronger? I can only tell you a fast Torah from Ishbitz. Moshe Rabbeinu wants to go into Eretz Yisrael, right? So God says to him, no, I'm sorry, you can't. And Moshe Rabbeinu is completely given to God, right? Moshe Rabbeinu doesn't, like he says, he doesn't move his eyelids unless it's God's will, right? So the question is, so why doesn't Moshe Rabbeinu say, God doesn't want me to, so it means I shouldn't. He keeps on praying. But you see, Moshe Rabbeinu knew one thing. I'm so given to God. How come I can't stop praying? Remember we're learning it, I'm just without getting off the traffic. This is mamish deep, you know. Imagine, I'm madly in love with this girl, and finally, she manages to throw me out from the house, and she locks the doors. What does that mean? She doesn't want to forget it, you know. Go home and look for somebody else. But listen to me. Well, I really love her very much. I put my ear on the door, and I hear that she is crying on the other side. You see what it is? The question is, you can say God drove us out from the Holy Land, so Mazel Tov, so go to Dallas, go to Alaska, right? Go to Bermuda. The only thing is, Carlebach Nishma, Mamish, we can hear God crying on the other side. What's God crying? Shuva Bonim Shavum, please come back. So I said, most humbly, a Gewalt Torah. You know, when Yaakov met Rochel, he began crying. If you remember the story. Why did he cry? Because of the destruction of the temple. This is really a deep Torah. I mean, I'm sure Yaakov Yaakov had clear prophecy. He knew before that. I mean, Yitzchak knew already that the temple would be destroyed for him. Why was he crying now? The answer is, when you meet your soulmate, then you have ears to hear what's going on behind the doors. Unless you're that close to a person that you can put your ears to the door, then you don't know what's going on the other side. When he met Rochel, suddenly he realized, I have to put my ear to God's doors. And they heard, God really doesn't want us to leave. God wants us to stay. I mean, this is just covers so much in everybody's personal life, you know. Some of the people are angry with you, but they're really not, you know. They're really crying on the other side. You know, sometimes one says to the other, I hate your guts, right? I don't know if you remember, I told you a lot of times, between married people, it doesn't... The question is never, how much do you love each other when you love each other? The question is, how much do you love each other when you hate each other? Well, remember we're learning it. Why is Mashiach coming on Tisha B'Av? Why isn't Mashiach coming on Yom Kippur? We ought to ask God for forgiveness. It will be a good time for Mashiach to come. So I put it like this. When you love somebody very much and you have a fight, there is two ways of handling it. I can say to you, I love you so much, I forgive you. That's Yom Kippur. Or I can say something else. I love you so much, and if you can do so much wrong, I don't ever want to see you again. Which is more effective? You know what the deepest depth is? If I say I love you so much and I forgive you, that means my loving you is not infinite deep. Okay, you did wrong, I love you, I forgive you. But if I say, because you did me wrong, don't want to ever see you again, it's not in proportion, right? Why don't you just forgive me? That means I love you so much. And if I love you so much, I cannot bear that you did wrong to me. Hurts me too much. So on Tisha B'Av, when God threw us out in the Holy Land, this is the day Mashiach is coming. Because suddenly, God realized we can't live without each other. On Tisha B'Av, it means I can't live without Yerushalayim, and Yerushalayim cannot be without me. This is the deepest, right? I just imagine, I have a fight, I love somebody very much, and they say, okay, get out of my life, that's it. And I'm just already by the door. This can't be, right? But it's not forgiving. It's just so much deeper. See, on Tisha B'Av, I'm not asking for forgiveness. You see what it is? So the Ishbitzer says, by Moshe Rabbeinu, Eretz Yisrael is so deep that when God makes it hard on him, even God tells him don't go, that means he has to ask for more, even deeper. Moshe Rabbeinu says, I'm sitting in the desert until Mashiach is coming, I'm not leaving. But if sometimes an obstacle comes and I realize, okay, it doesn't go. And after the whole Torah, it's still a secret. How do I know, right? But everybody has to know, just if it's clear to me I couldn't live without it, then maybe it's just a test. What do we know, right? You see what it is? Let's say so many people, mamish, especially in the Middle Ages, mamish, the Crusaders come and they say, okay, I'm jumping in the fire for God. There's two levels. I'm jumping in the fire for God because it says in the Torah that you should not bow down to idols. And if someone forces me, I'm ready to die for it. Well, then there's something so much deeper. You see, if in Avraham Avinu was thrown in the fire, was not he went al Kiddush Hashem. Not he says, okay, I'm because the Torah says you're not permitted to worship idols, and therefore I'm jumping in the fire. Avraham Avinu says, listen, I cannot live as an idol worship. I can't. So why die as an idol worshiper? I die as a Jew. So much deeper. This is the deepest. And you see, like, this goes for everything in the world, you know. I can die for an idea, but then a person can die not for the idea, just because I would be dead anyway. Okay, let's run over to John there. I'm making it too long already. Sorry.
What's the difference of lower wisdom and outside wisdom?
You see, outside wisdom is that, like by the Greeks, that only what they see is for real. What's by the Greeks? Anything I don't understand or I don't see doesn't exist, right? God doesn't exist, I can see it. You know the way they treated the older people? Because older people, what they see is an old person, not productive anymore, let's kill him. They did, you know, the older people, a certain age, put them out on the cliff and let them die there. You know the Greeks, without saying anything too bad, the way they treated their wives, if the woman wasn't beautiful enough anymore, throw her out from the house, that's it, you know. God forbid, children are born and they're not 100% functioning, you just kill them, that's all. You know the Chodesh HaMagid says in this phone? You know, Baruch Shem V'Yidin, the wedding ceremony today is exactly the way Moshe Rabbeinu had his first. Imagine Moshe Rabbeinu had his first wedding ceremony. What do? To Adam, and he gives a pruta or a ring, has to give a ksuba because you have to, right? It's exactly the same. How did people get married in the Holy Land, the pagans who lived there before us? So the Kodesh HaMagid says, he found it in Old Sefer, the way they did, for them it was not you get married to a woman, you buy a woman, right? Give her father a few gold pieces, and to show your ownership, you had to do one of the things, or knock out one eye, or knock out some teeth. Awesome. You see, I'm not going into now right or wrong. The world says that we Yidden are treating our wives properly. If not for us Yidden, the world would still treat their women like this, right? Who brought in a little civilization into this world, right? We are the first human beings in the world, right? That's why the world is so bogus on us. We remind them too much that talking about religion now. Basically, we are children of Avraham Avinu. We are the most human people. Without getting involved now with that. See, Avraham Avinu was not only the first person who believed in God, he was the first person who believed in human beings, right? Humane, yeah.
Humane, not human.
I'm sorry, yeah. Brother, that's why I need you to edit my English, brother.
They say we're the most human. It sounds different. We're the most humane.
Humane, you're right, 100%. Okay, now I'm learning you're there. Nelson, can you hear me?
Yeah, very well. Wonderful.
The Shabbos gekannt. Folks, are you alive down there?
Huh?
Are you alive in Boston?
Baruch Hashem. We're
Oh,
more
good.
alive now than we were before.
Oh, really? Listen, can you do me a favor? Can you tell Brenda that I saw her son when he's a Gewalt?
Tell Brenda.
Yeah, will do, Shlomo.
Okay.
Okay, we're learning now, straight from the book. You see, the whole world is doing everything under the table. But we, Yidden HaShulchan, we're doing it on the table. Okay, next time by the Shem will mimeograph it, so it'll be easier for you. Mitzvahs Esther little stokik via Sogas Yad. Okay, someone asks you, how much stock am I supposed to be? Am I supposed to give? The answer is, it doesn't say $10 or $100 or $50. The mitzvah of stock is to give in accordance with what you make. As simple as it is.
So you Reish Mem test?
The Reishmem Zayin.
Zion.
Shlomo, if you're receiving tzedakah, you get 10% of what you receive.
How much? Oh yeah. What did you have for breakfast, Brother Wolf? How you Wolf and Gewalt. The only thing is, if you can hold out, you'll get there. The truth is, I do. Yeah. But that's because we're learning just in the beginning now.
Somebody I know once got some money. He needed to borrow money, so he borrowed money from homeless.
Say it again. What?
One of driver that comes here sometimes, he
Yeah.
needs some money desperately. So he went out with homeless people and they gave him some money.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of-
You intimating some of them are very wealthy.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Okay, mitzvahs eser l'tzedakah k'fi hasugas yad. Whatever you make, in proportion. V'kama pa'omim You know, in Aitzot I told them about a rich man, Chassidish Yid, let's say who gives tzedakah anyway and give Maisa anyway. But then he married off his daughter and he spent $100,000 on the wedding. So what did he do? He also gave $100,000 for tzedakah. I know a lot of Chassidish Yid in former good days. Whenever a rich Yid would make a wedding for his daughter and spend $10,000, he would take an orphan, make for her wedding, and also spend $10,000. Most Yid. Mamish would always, this is more than proportion, right? He would mamish, when God blesses me, I marry my child, I want to give tzedakah. Because I mean, there's thousands of stories like this. Chassidish Yid and Tar Yid, you know, it's a different concept of tzedakah. I have to knock in this story, although you know it, but it's a Gewalt story. This is a story which a person should always remember. Remember I told you, my Rebbe said, there's two kinds of knowledge. There's bank knowledge, and there's cash knowledge. Certain things you can have in the bank of your head, and then there are certain things you should always have cash in your hands, you know. Same stories, you know, it's a cash story. The Bach, remember, was a chief rabbi in Krakow, approximately 1550. You know, he was mamish like He was the Rebbe of all of Israel. Just to give you a taste what level he was. The Rishna said that, on the way to heaven, to paradise, you have to go through hell. And don't ask me questions, why, but that's what it is. So, and it says 30 days before the Bach passed away, hell wasn't working anymore. They cooled down hell, so when the Bach has to go through, you shouldn't feel anything.
Who said this, the Rishon?
The Rishon said about the Bach, that 30 days before the Bach passed away, they were cooling down hell, because the Bach has to go through in order to get to Gan Eden. So he was a tough man, right? So one day he asked heaven, who, if you remember, it says in the everywhere that before a person is born, that they show him two sides. If God forbid bad, this is your seat in hell, and if you're good, that's your seat in paradise. I mean, it's deeper than all this, but that's what it is. So he was asking in heaven, who will sit next to me? Who will I sit next to? So they told him that let's say there's a big city in Poland, Ostraha, and they would call it Ois Teure, Ostraha, Ostraha, the sign of the Torah. There's a rich Yidele by the name of, let's call him Moshe for a sake of name, and he will sit next to you. So, the Heilige Bach gets dressed incognito, goes down to Ostraha, and starts checking up on this brother Moshe, who will be his neighbor. Moshe is a rich man, gives a lot of tzedakah, doesn't know much, basically an ordinary Yid. So he was so hurt. I mean, I give my life for Israel, I'm not eating, I'm not sleeping, and all I will be in paradise, I'll sit next to this Moshe, And he was just about leaving home, and was a little bit angry at heaven, at their judgment. But then they told him, tomorrow night he marries off his son. Okay, let's check out the wedding. He's coming to the wedding, and he's leading his son to the wedding. Suddenly, in the corner, someone is crying, mamish, to the end of the world. So he says to somebody, please see who is crying. They're coming back and they bring a boy who's never, and in those days people were not 75 when they got married. Usually the boy was maybe 14, 15, and the girl was maybe 13, 14. So they bring a boy, 15, the same age like the chosin. So this Moshe asks this boy, why are you crying so much? He says, Rabbi, let me tell you, I was engaged to this girl before your son. In fact, he says, in those days they made engagements when kids were 3, 4 years old. So I want you to know, if you maybe remember, he says, my father come in. He says, maybe you remember, he says, my father maybe you remember, he says, my father was this very wealthy man, and this girl was my bride, and she is my soulmate. We love each other so much. Then last year my father went bankrupt. So her parents decided that they will not let her marry a poor boy, so you got engaged to her. Your son. So Moshe said, I can't believe this. let's call the girl. They're calling the bride, the color. And they ask her, is it true that you were engaged to this boy? She says, yes, we were engaged until last year. Then my father went bankrupt. My parents forced me to disengage myself. And so he says to her, do you really love this boy? She says, it's my soulmate. Thank you so much. Master of the world, thank you so much. So he says to the boy, listen to me. I'm adopting you right this minute. And whatever I want my son to give, I give to you. So he took his son back and he gave him his chosen garments. And the Bach said, I've never seen a Yid dancing at his own child's wedding like this Yid was dancing at the wedding of somebody else. So the Bach said like this, when I got there, I could not understand why Moshe should sit next to me. And when I left, I could not understand why I should have the privilege to sit next to such a holy Yid. You know, I mean, this is Gewalt, you know. I want you to know, I know one thing without mentioning names. Distant relative of my father's brother was like a multi-billionaire in Russia. Whenever he made of one of his children, a son or a daughter, he didn't make a wedding for one orphan, he always made weddings for 10 orphans. That was for me. Gewalt.
What's the cash aspect of it?
What?
What's the cash aspect of the story, Shlomo?
What do you mean?
Is there any particular? You said that's not a bank story; it's a cash story. Is there
No, I
some
mean
aspect
you have to carry it with you all the time.
Why that
be
story?
ready.
Don?
But you know, sometimes, just mamish to be happy when something good happens to somebody else, and giving up your own joy for somebody else. Okay, he says we come up for omem nitzavina bo b'mitzvahs esse, and a lot of times in the Torah it says the mitzvahs esse means you have, it's a positive commandment, you have to give tzedakah. But then the yesh loisa sev man, and it's not only the Torah says positively you have to give tzedakah, there's also a law that it's mamish a sin if you don't give. You see, to give is not just someone says, okay, I don't want to be good. It's not a question of being good. If you don't give, you're mamish evil. It says mamish two loisa say. Loisa amitzes levavcho v'lesikmitzes yodcho. You know what that means? Like, basically the way God created us, our hearts should be so soft. The way God created us, when I see a poor man, I should just melt away. Right? So it takes a special effort to harden my heart. See, I don't reach it so deep in the Torah. It's not that I have to make my heart soft to give. You have to make your heart hard not to give. It's a special effort. It's a special energy, hopefully, for not giving. The Torah says, and don't hold back your hand. That meaning to say, when I see a poor man, my hand is always open. And it takes a special energy to hold back. The Torah says, don't do it. And here comes how a person is called who doesn't give. It's heavy. If a person walks by a poor man and pretends he doesn't see, Nikru b'liyad. I don't know how to say it in English, but in Yiddish, it's called an Aitzot. Means you're not part of society. You are so evil that society cannot bear you. You're called a pagan. Because if you would believe in God, you would understand God puts this poor man in front of me, to give him something. But if I'm a pagan, I want you to know something. You know the difference between serving God and serving an idol? It's very simple. Have you ever heard someone says, I'm a servant of an idol? No. You know what an idol is? Let's say there's a money god, right? So from time to time, I'm bringing a little sacrifice to appease the god and make sure he gives me money. There's a rain god, and I need rain. I'm going to the rain god and I say, listen, brother God, I'm bringing you some sacrifices, and you better get me some rain. That means I'm only doing something for the idol because I need him. I'm not serving God because I need him. I'm a servant of God. And also, hopefully God will take care of my needs. But I'm not serving God because I need him. I'm a servant of God. So you see, if I'm only serving idols, okay, I pass by a poor man. What does it matter to the rain god or to the money god if I give charity to this poor man? He doesn't give a damn, right? Especially in so many departments, until the idols find out that I didn't give charity. It's a long process, right? In the meantime, I'm covered. But if you mamish believe in God, then you cannot pass by a poor man. This is not everything. What?
Hey, can I ask a question?
Yeah, yeah.
Do you mind? I'm just curious, in a straight way, this is Yidden and Goyim? Or?
That's a good question. So basically, let me tell you something. Since Tzedakah is for Yid and for Goyim, so I would say this part is really for everyone. Because everyone is supposed to believe in God, right? Means if a person does not give, means he don't believe in God. Simple as it is.
At both ends, meaning Yid and Goyim have a chiyuv to give, and if a Yid runs into a Goy or vice versa, is that what you're saying?
Meaning if I see a Goy passing by a poor man doesn't give, means he doesn't believe in God. Simple as it is. But again, I don't know.
It seems somewhat overwhelming today. You go uptown and you have it in 10 blocks, and then when you get to the west side, there's on 10 blocks, homeless on every block, and you have to be prepared to give money each one.
Gotta have a little brain on you, yeah.
It's a little bit because it's in you, it's not in them. You're not giving because they need, you're giving because something strong happens to you if you don't give it to your poor person.
No, I didn't say that.
I'm asking. No, I didn't mean something bad happens to you, because you're in a shum. In other words, there's a chiyuv on you to give when you see a poor person, as opposed to just giving to, as opposed to seeing to it that a poor person has his needs. Is there not a chiyuv?
No, you see, if you're believing God, then your heart is open, that's it. Okay, you know, everything has 2 million, I tell you, the Gemara says, why did Esther invite Haman to the feast? So the Gemara says 11 reasons. And at the end the Gemara says, all the 11 are true, right? When you pass by a poor man, you have to give for 2 million reasons. First of all, he needs it. It's good for you in the Neshama also. And then you can knock off all the Torahs of Rav Nachman while you're giving. But in the meantime, you got to give, right? Yeah.
This reminds me in Kedushin, you're talking about to rise before an older person.
Yeah.
And you're not supposed to pretend you didn't see him.
You're not supposed to do what?
Pretend you didn't see him.
Yeah.
To have an excuse not to rise. So
Very good.
parallel.
Sure, you can always pretend, I was meditating and I didn't pretend.
It seems, Shlomo, if your head gets involved, you're already in trouble.
What?
What I thought you said is that if your heart is open, you act totally different. We all know that. So if it's a head issue, it's already a different story.
That's what Rav Nachman said. The head makes you, the head of outside Israel makes you crazy, right?
But the head of outside Israel makes you crazy.
Yeah. But then it says, and then there's one more thing. You have to be very careful with it. And also he says you have to each time you see a poor man, you have to know you're playing with life. Because you don't know how hungry he is.
Could you repeat that one more time?
You don't know how hungry he is at this moment.
I'm sorry, could you just say that whole thing one more time? I just didn't hear it.
Which one? Oh, the last part?
Yeah.
Then it says, "Oit yesh lizorbo." You have to be very careful with it. Ki efshe sheyovel ede shvichas domim sheyomer se'oni hamavakish. Because it's possible that if you're not giving him something now, he might die from hunger, because you don't know how hungry he is. Ki ovde de nochem ishkamzu, like the story of nochem ishkamzu. He says, "Wait until you get down from my horse." And the meantime, the woman died from hunger. He says, "La'olam."
You have a backstory like this, yeah?
What?
Interrupting you. You have a backstory with your Tzeda like this.
No.
The
So you
3 months,
remind me.
no, I just the 3-month story. You know, when he went, he was the top Talmud of the Bach, was it? Yeah, well, top Talmud of the Bach, and he
Ah, it's gewalt. Sammy, Rebbe. So you tell them the
No,
story.
please.
Sammy, I have to.
No.
Sammy, I have to save my voice for tonight. Sammy, I'm not going to save my voice.
I don't know. Please, I'm still half asleep.
You're only half asleep. I'm snoring. Sammy, something.
No, please.
No? Okay, good.
Someone say the story.
Okay, I'll tell it fast. That's also a cash story to remember. The Heilige Bach, you know, had Mamish a big yeshiva, and his top student eventually became a rich man, and that's it. One day a poor man comes to the Heilige Bach, and he says, I have a certain trade, and this is a very special kind of a thing, and it's very hard to find a job in the field I am. And I just found out that a nobleman needs me. He has an opening. But in those days, you know, a Jew has no way of talking to a nobleman. And he said, I want you to know, I lost my job from a few months ago. First of all, my marriage is broke, because if there's no food in the house, husband and wife fight. All my children are starving from hunger. So he says, please, I'm begging you to, says the Bach, give me a letter of recommendation to your pupil that he should speak for me to the nobleman. So the Bach gives him a letter of recommendation, and he comes to this, let's call him Rabbi Avrom, just for name's sake. So Rabbi Avrom says to him, you know, I'll be glad to do it in 3 months from now. Because tomorrow morning I'm leaving for Leipzig for the fair, you know, in those days, Leipzig was the big fair. And I don't have time today. So he says, in 3 months, when my children will be dead from hunger, and my wife will run out of me, and please, I'm begging you. He says, I'm sorry, I can't do it. So, after 3 months, he comes back, and the poor man is still alive, he gets him the job. A few months later, this Rebbe Avrom Shtolem gets very sick, and is just about dying. So my Tzeda, the Holy Bach, comes to see him, and he was on the level. He says, I want you to swear to me, give me your hand and swear to me that after you die, after you leave this world, next Friday night, after Kiddush, you come back to see me and tell me what happened. I gotta know what happened to you up there. Okay, you know. After Kiddush, we're sitting there, talking about how you do it, what's happening, right? The Heilige Bach, after Kiddush, Gewalt, you know where he was. He comes. He says, hey, so what happened to you? He said, I'll tell you what happened to me. He said, you know, my whole life I really lived a very holy life. I'm coming up to heaven, there's no problem. I'm going to paradise. I'm just about walking into paradise. There's a black angel blocking the way. Okay, they take me back before the heavenly court. The heavenly court says to the black angel, what are you claiming? So the black angel says, I'm not claiming that he should go to hell, because he really didn't do anything wrong. But if you can let somebody wait 3 months, do him a favor, then you are not merchandise for paradise. You don't belong to hell, but not for Gan Eden. So he was crying. He said, Rebbe, what should I do now? I'm not in hell, not in heaven. I'm a homeless neshama. So the Bach says, first one he says, I learn Mishnayos for you. I learn for your name's sake. But above all, he says, I'll leave my last will that my children and grandchildren, until Mashiach is coming, should tell the story. And if maybe someone in the world will not wait to do somebody a favor because of you, that will bring you always closer to paradise. It's a wild story. Okay, Olam ein odem ma'anim min tzedakah. It never happened that a person becomes poor because he gave. V'loi dovarav v'loi hesim misgav. And nothing wrong ever comes to it. Someone cannot say, because I gave so much charity, I went bankrupt. It's not true. Because of tzedakah, only good things are happening. Because it says, "V'hoyo ma'aseh tzedakah shalom." The act of tzedakah can only bring peace. Then something else. Kol merachem al aniyim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu merachem alam. If you have compassion with others, God has compassion with you. And here I just have to repeat, I'm sure we learned it, the Baal Shem Tov's Torah, and the Rav Nachman's Torah. The Gemara says, "Afilu cherem munachas al tzavor shel odom," even if the sword is already on your neck, al yimna atzmo min rachmim, don't hold back from the way the world says, don't hold back from asking for compassion. But the Baal Shem says, no, it doesn't mean asking for compassion. It means don't hold back from having compassion. So he says the deepest story in the world. Okay, imagine I'm in a lot of trouble. Someone calls me up. I say, listen, brother, I don't have the strength to do you a favor. I'm deep down in mud myself, forget it, right? What's the first thing we're doing? When we're in trouble, we have no heart for somebody else. But it says the only way of opening the gates from heaven for me is to have compassion with somebody else. Because I open the gates with somebody else, and the gates already open, I go through also. So he says, even if the sword is already on your neck, don't stop having compassion with others. So here the Shlomo says, Kol merachem al aniyim, everybody who has compassion with the poor, HaKadosh Baruch Hu merachem olav, and God has compassion with you also.
Shlomo,
Yeah.
could it be also when the sword on your neck, so the natural thing is to really have hate building in your heart against the person who is doing you unjust. So that maybe he says that even that person doing to you unjust, turn your heart in compassion for that person who's doing you wrong.
This is already a very high level. How much three you're on the level. But this is very hard to ask of every person, right? The Shlomo cannot put this say, you have to have compassion with the person who's knocking you off. But three, a rebel like you can upshot on that level. It's very important to know the Torah, besides having a basic interpretation, also it means something else for everyone, right? I'll tell you what the Gemara says. God says don't kill, right? So for an ordinary person means don't take out a knife and kill somebody else. The higher you are, the more it includes. Right, maybe for somebody else on a very high level, to ignore another person means to kill another person. Also kill. The Gemara says to put somebody to shame, it's killing. Okay, something else. This is a Kotzka Torah. Don't steal, right? That means I'm not permitted to put my hand in your pocket and pull out $10. But if I waste your time, I stole your time. You're not permitted to steal time of somebody else. But then the Rebbe says for tzaddik, like Rav Tzvi, don't steal from yourself. Don't waste your own time. Don't steal your own life. That's the way they give out. But the Gemara says, everybody when they stood on Mount Sinai heard what God said on their level. That means the coarse person just heard, don't take a knife and kill somebody. And the higher person heard it on their level, what's happening. Now we're coming to the Ramah. The Ramah, if you remember, they lived at the same time, and the Beis Yosef sent to the Ramah, and so he was adding to it. It says, "V'yitin ha'odam aliba shu mavakish kol shor panutzosim v'kodesh baruch hu. O k'moi shehu mavakish kol shor baruch hu yish b'shavoseh, kach yish b'shavoseh." This is very important, friends. The richest man in the world needs God's blessing every second. Someone took a loan from Reichman Rosh Hashiva in Etzot. Let's say $10,000. Reichman says, "When are you giving it back to me?" So he says, "The moment you need it." So 2 years ago, it sounded like a joke. It's not a joke anymore. Suddenly it turns, Reichman went bankrupt, simple as it is. Okay, I'm sure he has some money left in Switzerland, but this is not important. I have to tell you this fast story. We say when we daven, we say mashpil game at the earth. God takes the arrogant and puts him down on the ground. And he lifts up the low, the broken to high heaven. So this is the story of a Chosr of the Baal Shem. It was almost like a little Reichman. He had money invested in every country in the world. One day he davens, and he says to himself, "How can God throw me down to the ground? Something goes wrong in Russia, I have Switzerland. Something goes wrong in Switzerland, I have Germany. Something goes wrong in Germany, I have France." And this got him so crazy, and he thinks, when you find fault, you find more fault. And the more he was thinking, the more he realized that the whole davening is nonsense. And if the whole davening is nonsense, the Torah was nonsense. The Baal Shem Tov was nonsense. And suddenly it was clear to him that he has to become a Christian. That's the only religion which makes sense. He is already 75 years old. He has great-grandchildren. And he is mamash, the leader of the city, gets all dressed up, and he goes over to the bishop who lives on the other side. And he says, "I came to convert. I see the light." So the bishop says, "You must be kidding. Even I don't believe in it, right?" So he didn't say that. You know what he says? "You're the most outstanding Jew here." He says, "Please don't make fun of me." He said, "You know how much I mean it? I'm ready to sign over all my money to the church." He signs a paper that he gives all the money to the church. So the bishop says, "And he insists tonight we'll have a big party and baptize you." Comes back home. This is crazy. You know how long it takes God to take the most arrogant and throw you down? It takes 2 minutes. Mama, she gave away all his money. He was thinking, how can God take away my money? God makes you crazy for 1 minute and you lost it all. So Mama broke out Gewalt. And the shame, my kids, I took away my money from my children, from my grandchildren. Well, what's going on there? And he was Mama standing by the window and crying his eyes out. Commercial, please forgive me. At that moment, the Holy Baal Shem Tov walked in. felt it already far away, immeasurable, she came like kvitzes there. He says to him, okay, so the first part, you see, is true. God can take the arrogant and throw them down. But why don't you also believe the second part? That God can take the broken and lift them up again. So he says, look out of the window. Look out from the window, and they see there's a fire in the house of the bishop. And all which was burned was a desk with a letter on it. So you see, so the Shulchan Aruch says, you need mamish God's blessing every second. You know what is really the difference between you and the poor man? Isn't much of a difference. He needs God every second, and you also need God's compassion every second. And the more you have compassion with Him every second, the more God has with you. And then something else, he says. Everybody knows that there's a wheel of fortune. He says, no, this is the deepest. If you don't give, it doesn't mean that you'll be a poor man tomorrow, but maybe your great-grandchild will be poor because you didn't give to them. So you see what it is? When I have compassion with the poor man, basically I'm paving the way for my great-grandchildren that they shouldn't have to be poor. Halabah mamash. Or Eniklach should be rich. Hatstoko doiches gezeres hakushas. He says, God forbid, even if it was decreed in heaven that something should go wrong, Stoka is mamish pushing it off. Berov tatzim umovitz kmosh iver tzafik. And also, even God forbid there's a famine, if you give tzedakah, it saves you from dying. You know, they're supposing it says, Aser b'shvil setis asher. That means, give the tenth in order to be rich, because, you know, Eser tenth and Osher riches is the same word, same letters. So the Gemara says, God says, you can test me. If you give a tenth, I'll make you rich. So he says, the Ramah says, some people say, you can test God even with charity also. God, I give mamish charity today, and I'm testing you if you give it back to me. And some say you can only test God when it comes to the tenth. And listen to me, I want to tell you something. This is a classic story. A Yid comes to Rav Tzvi Melech. You know, tonight is his Yortzeit. Mention lesson on the Heilige Rav Tzvi Melech of dinner. A rich man came to Rav Tzvi Melech. Rav Tzvi Melech says, do me a favor, write me down how much you made this year, but really everything, and also write me down all your expenses. So he writes them down. Let's assume he writes down his income is exactly $100,000. He writes down his expenses, what he spent. He realized he spent $300,000. So he says, where is this $200,000 coming from? He says it comes from the money you give for tzedakah and for Shabbos. So you see, the way God gives it back to us is not suddenly a little shekel is falling down from heaven with $200,000. God, whatever God does is also everything secretly, right? One with the other, suddenly we make it. Let's make it a little stop. Good Shabbos, good Yom Tov, and let's get rich fast. What time is it now?
Now it's a quarter after.
He had two greatest pupils in the world. That's what he said. I have the two greatest Jews being my students. He says, Tzedakah Cohen, who was in Lublin, is Mamash was Mamash the biggest Kohen in the world, the greatest scholar in the world. You know, he finished Shas the whole time when he was 9, and he was already then a Kabbalist also, but by 12 he absolutely knew the whole Torah, whatever was given him on Sinai by heart. And when he was 10 years old, his uncle left for Africa, and someone never came back. And his aunt was very worried. She thought he drowned maybe in the ship. So he was enough of a Kabbalist to put a vow on the angel who's in charge of the oceans in heaven, to tell him if his uncle drowned in the ocean. Hey, come in. You coming in for a few minutes?
I have my Carlebach with me. I'm afraid it'll make noise.
No.
Okay, if it makes noise, we'll go downstairs.
You know, I'm learning till 1:30.
Oh, you told me to come 12:30 one, so I didn't realize.
No, I thought.
Sure.
No,
Maybe we'll come back.
maybe so. Let me talk to you for 2 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, good. Brother, you know the first page. You know the first Torah.
Maybe really 2 minutes, real time.
Oh, you're going to make me swim.
No.
I wouldn't put the channel.
Okay, Sammy, go ahead.
I'll just read from the Hebrew.
What's
Stalin's teaching now.
What's Sefer?
It's Tzedakah Tzaddik, which was written by Rav Tzedakah Cohen.
Tzedakah Kohen, Tzedakah Tzaddik.
And that's, he's like, Rav Shlomo started saying there are 2 lead disciples, he'll clarify it later, of the Ishbitzer Rebbe.
So this is one of his
This is one of, right, who were not his relatives. He has his sons, obviously, the Beis Yaakov. But those that weren't his relatives, who were 2 lead disciples, was Rav Leibele Eger, Torah's Emes.
That was the Ishbitzer's?
Not to be confused with Rabbi Akiva Eger, who was his father, who was a big Lutvak, but his father, Akiva Eger was the father. Akiva Eger was the father of Rabbi Leibele Eger. Shlomo will give you the background later, but the other one is Rav Tzedakah Cohen, who later became a Rebbe in Lublin. If you were in Lublin, you may have passed his. No, he's not the Choser of Lublin, but he was a rabbi in Lublin about 100 years after the Choser.
Are you starting to...
Yeah, I'm going to learn right inside.
Okay, what text?
It's Tzidkas HaTzadik.
That's what I wanted to know, thank you. And where?
First page, I'm going to start.
Thank you.
Well, did you know the story about the
It comes.
the sea and the Shlomo will finish. He don't know.
Let's know. No, I don't even know what. I'll just try to translate whatever I can. Okay. Reishis Knisas Ha'adam Lavodas Hashem. The beginning of a person going into, so to speak, serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzarech liyos b'chipazon. Has to be fast. Kamosha Metzina with Pesach Mitzrayim, like you find the carbon Pesach of Mitzrayim. Shoynechel b'chipazon below Pesach Doras. That the first carbon Pesach that we ate when we went out of Egypt was eaten very quickly, as we know, because we were on the run. We were chas v'shalom about to be detained by them, so we had to move quickly. So we had to eat it fast. The other carbon Pesachs that we ate in the following years, the mitzvah was not so much to eat it b'chipazon that fast, although it's not eaten slowly either. But that mitzvah was meant to be eaten very fast. That was the first mitzvah we did. That was us going in to serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to avodas Hashem. So from this you see that the beginning of coming into service of God has to be b'chipazon, has to be fast. And I think everybody can understand the deeper meaning of this, that you got to throw yourself into the sea. You have to mamish. You can't meditate and kvetch and cracks over it for 1,000 years. The beginning has to mamish be something beyond the head, something that's b'chipazon, fast. Make it fast, brother. That's right. Okay. Okay. Do you have it already?
Yeah.
Okay. מפני שהתחילו לנתק עצמם בכל תאוות העולם הזה, שמקשר בהם, צריך לשמוע הרגע שמסעור בו רצון Hashem. Because in the beginning, when you're, so to speak, removing yourself from all of the desires, or whatever the right phrase of putting all the taivas of this world, all the seductions of this world, which a person is tied to, you have to guard yourself very carefully to the point that you're guarding every second of that initial process. that you stir, in a certain sense, the true willing of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And knows every second counts at that moment when you're getting into it. And each moment is another moment. Each second is another second. So in that second, when you're getting into it, in order for you to bring the proper kedusha to that moment, you have to mamash fulfill that moment, take it to the maximum. And that's why it's b'chipazon, because again, if your mind is anywhere else but into what you're doing, then you're not into what you're doing, and you're, so to speak, moving in a slower fashion. And the idea is to be at one with that moment, where all your koichos, all your energies are focusing on what you're trying to get into. So the language he uses, also rega, that you should rush yourself on that second, lamaher, letzeis mehem ula yachol, to move away from your old consciousness, from your old Weltanschauung, from who you were, in the fastest possible way. Again, the only way to do that is with that holy speed, so to speak, that you put all your energy into it.
When do you do that?
I'm sorry. When you're first starting your trip to Yiddishkeit, so to speak, which I guess happens every day, every second to every one of us, that you should really, the way to fulfill that is by putting all of your being into that second, as if you're rushing to save a life, as if what's the whole significance of rushing? When you're rushing, you're focused. If somebody's drowning, chas v'shalom, and you're a lifeguard, you can't use your head at that moment. All your energies are focused in jumping into the sea to save a human being. And that's what he's really saying is how one gets into Yiddishkeit. Simply put. He says, but v'achar kach shuv yelach b'msinas la'ad kedin pesach doros. He says, then you take your pause of breath, and then you follow up and you go in a slower fashion. It's interesting that he's using Pesach. One of the most common Torahs on Pesach that illustrates this is the first night Pesach as opposed to the nights that follow Pesach. The first night Pesach, we believe there's like a heavenly stirring. We, so to speak, were not on a level that we were fit to go out of Egypt. We were in the 49th level of Tumah, as everybody knows, and the Egyptians were only one rung lower. They were in the 50th level of Tumah. So what got us out basically was this bichipazon, this rushed move. It was HaKadosh Baruch Hu taking us out. But it's interesting, that's the first night of Pesach. What do we do the second night Pesach? The second night Pesach, we start counting Sphira. Second night Pesach, you mamash slow down and you say one is... How do you get ready for Shavuos? How do you get ready for ultimate Kabbalah Satorah? Through Sphira. And that's when you go back into the real life and you say, today is one day I'm into it, today is 2 days I'm into it. That's the follow-through.
Is that the stirring from the lowest?
That's already very good, thank you. Exactly. That's the lower stirring. That's where you're stirring it already. The first day, that rush thing is something that's beyond you. It's like Kadosh Baruch Hu is fire in you that's burning, that's taking you. And don't let that stop you, is what he's saying. Flow, run right along with it. But then you got to go back to the finiteness of this world. And in the finiteness of this world, you count Sphira in order to get the Kabbalah Satorah.
Waters from below.
Waters from below. Okay, now this is the first. I'm sure Rav Shlomo will say Torah on it. I'm just reading the Hebrew. Berchas l'rosh tzaddik. Now we're learning the second paragraph. He says in Masechtas Brachas, it says that the most important thing is to know that God is your Father. And afterwards, you have to serve Him. And afterwards, when you're serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you have to know who it is that you're serving. He says, when we make a bracha, on any object that we make a bracha on, we are being miyached, we are being at one with HaKadosh Baruch Hu's creation. I knocked it off.
Sammy did all the chipazon.
Yeah, very good.
And quickly.
Where did you learn?
First paragraph is on the second.
Where on the
I did
second?
the white fire.
We also get the end of the story.
I did.
Did you get the rest of the story?
Okay, I'll make it fast. So he put a vow on the Sar Shalmaim, the prince of the water, and the prince of the water told him that he didn't drown. On the country, he's on his way back, and he'll be home in a few weeks. His uncle. I mean, that was his level when he was 10 years old. When he was 13, he got married. He married the daughter of a very wealthy man. You know, in those days, The rich man has a beautiful daughter, takes a big lampen, promises him 20 years support, and in the meantime, there were a lot of people, because he was mamish one in the world, unsurpassed. There were a lot of people who were jealous that this rich man, not only rich, also has the toughest, most promising young man in the world as a son-in-law. So you know what they did? He was a Kohen. And God forbid, a Kohen, if his wife, God forbid, is raped, he has to give her a divorce. It's not so simple. So they put in little notes in this Gemara, do you know that your wife has a relationship with, she has a Russian lover? And, she is 13 years old and he is also 13. So he disregarded it. But you know what the Gemara says? Lashon Hara is like poison, right? Apples, one drop. And his father-in-law had a big wine store. That's how he got so rich. One day, he walks in there, and there was this, and she was a very beautiful girl, his wife. So this Russian Cossack officer had just bought some wine, and he said thank you and shook hands with his wife. And when you're suspicious on your wife, somehow he felt that they were holding hands a little bit too long, Nebuch, He's told he did heartbreaking, So he didn't go home anymore, he just went off to another village, and he sent a message to her he wants to have a get immediately. Because he knows she's not faithful to him. She wrote him back a heartbreaking letter. What do you mean I'm not faithful to you? I love you so much. I'm just a little girl. Have compassion with me, But Sednev was a big misnagid at that time, halacha, So he went from rabbi to rabbi. According to Jewish law, if your wife doesn't want to take a get, then you have to get permission from 100 rabbis to marry. Every rabbi told him, don't be stupid, go home. Go home, what do you want her for? It's crazy. But he didn't listen to anybody. And he went from Russia, and nobody wanted to give him permission, so he finally thought maybe in Poland. He's coming. Never, he was like a maniac. So he comes to Poland, he comes to the Holy Sansa. And the Holy Sansa says, I'll tell you something. And he wanted to convince him, according to halacha, he has to divorce his wife. So the Sansa says, I'll tell you something. First of all, I'll be halacha, you're 100% wrong. But let me tell you something else. I have Ruach HaKodesh, a clear prophecy. And I'll tell you why was mamash a holy woman. And I'll give you a sign. If you divorce her and marry somebody else, you'll never have children. God forbid. But he was a misnagid, right? Because his grandfather was one of the closest people to the Vilna Gaon. So I thought, Achsidish Rebbe, what he says, who cares? Never he regretted it all his life, Because while he was in Poland, suddenly he got a message from his wife, okay, give me a get, He gave her a get, married somebody else, never had children. Wow. You have it on tape now. But God had compassion with him, yeah.
He didn't have
Still with him, so finally gave his wife a get, married somebody else. But you see, inside, he must have been afraid already. Maybe the Sansa is right. So he married a woman who had already children. So those children became like his own. And in fact, all the swarm we have of Tzedakah Kohen were given out by his stepson. Yeah, was also obviously on the level to give out his books. Anyway, so the Ishbitzer says, I have two Jews Machsidim. Rav Tzedakah Kohen is the biggest Lampen, and Rav Lebele Eger is the biggest Ovid Hashem, the biggest Davner. But let me finish with Rav Tzedakah Kohen. First of all, his arrogance was gefährlich. I told you, he comes to sons, didn't listen to anybody, he always thought he is right. What else he did, he mamish learned day and night. But at night, when it's warm, the window was open, and he was learning loud. People would tell him, can you please close the window, we have little children, and you wake them up. He says, my learning is more important than all your children. Kept the windows open, and whenever he saw a person talking and learning, he would make learn, and says, you both are idiots, you can't learn. It's like a little bit out of hand. So one day, he walks in Ishbitze to the Besmedrash, and the Meishalach was learning. As he walked in, the Meishalach, or the Ishbitze, says to his son, the Bes Yaakov, from Yaakov, you see the young man who just walked in? He stood next to me on Mount Sinai. And something happened to Rav Tzedakah at that moment. Mamish became a Yid. Mamish purified his neshama. From that time on, he was so sweet. Mamish, at night he would learn very soft not to disturb people, and he wouldn't walk up to people and say, you both are idiots, you don't know how to learn. And he Mamish was Mamish a mensch. And he became the Ishbitze's biggest Talmud. So here, and you know how he wrote this form? He was the biggest Rebbe in the world, but he would never take the money he gave him for brochas. You know, when people asked him to bless him, give him money, he would never take it. He would take it, but he would give it for Tzedakah. And you know how he didn't even have money for paper to write his books on. So it was just a little piece of paper. He would collect papers on the street. I mean, the poverty was not to be believed. And his stepson, once in the big family, he put everything together. So this is Tzaddik is simply about 200 pieces of paper which were put together. And you know what he wrote on? Sometimes he wrote Torahs on leftover cigarettes. He took the paper. I mean, the poverty was awesome. Not to be believed. Right? That's what it is. Okay. Same, you learned it already? I'm starting over here. Reishis Knesses Olam Hashem Yot Berapos. You know, we walked out from Egypt one night fast. Anything you want to do for God is fast. Always fast. Because if you start thinking, you'll stay. You won't do it. You know, everything which is awesome, like going out from slavery, or doing unbelievable things, unless you do it fast, you won't do it.
What's the difference of doing fast and pushing the moment? Let's say you're doing it fast and you're pushing the moment.
What do you mean pushing the moment?
Forcing. You gotta know between doing fast and not to force something.
Oh, you mean, it's something else, you know. Let's say I want to do something, at this moment I can't do it, I'm not giving up, I'll do it later. But here we're talking about me postponing it, you know. Okay, for instance, let's say, I decide from now on I want to learn every day. And I say, no, I'll start from tomorrow. That's what we're talking about. Which most of us do, you know. Yeah, it's open. Right now the door is open. Oh, you know, I don't want to say anything bad, you know, but most people, till they get engaged, they quetch, and then they say, oh, let's get married next year. What are you waiting for next year, right? You know, this morning I woke up, and stupidly I remembered a Torah which I said, I think 100 years ago. It says in Beke'oros, Al tabe sicha ima isha. Don't talk so much to women, right? Which is not so simple, and it needs clarification. But anyway, I was at this Way Out panel, and about feminism, and it was like about, and they were trying to tear us apart. So this girl who knows a little bit, she says, what does it mean, Al tabe sicha ima isha, right? So I said to her, I didn't have even a chance to look it up, but anyway, I said to her like this. It doesn't say Al tabe sicha im isha don't talk to any woman. Don't talk so much to the woman. So he says, you know what that means? And I was touching something personal in this girl because this was her problem. I said, you know what most men do? The one woman they want to marry, they keep on talking, but they never marry her. You know? Keep on talking. So don't talk so much. You know? They're making wedding plans and he and this. Other wedding plans.
So how did this happen? How did such a brilliant?
Well, she liked it because this was never her story. Rabbi Yankele, danke so. See, she has all this chasanim, they talk and talk and talk, and never, in the meantime she was never not married yet, you know. So she realized it's good. You know, sometimes you see people, they mamish love each other. When you get married, we are working on it. Work on blintzes, but don't work. Even blintzes, if you work too long on it, it's stale. Right? I once heard in a movie someone said like this: the difference in Europe and America. In Europe, when you meet somebody, you get married, and then you get bored. In America, you meet somebody, you go out, you get bored, and then you marry. Anyway, Mazel tov.
You got that out of that writing.
2 ways of serving God. All right. What do I know? You see what it is? He says the deepest in the world. You know what the hardest thing in the world is? To break a habit. Remember that what Shem Tov says, what is the greatest slave driver? Habit. Can't get it out, right? You know, let's say for instance a person doesn't keep Shabbos. Even if they believe in Shabbos, the problem is not Shabbos, the problem is that they're in the habit. Friday night he plays golf and she goes to the beautiful, right? It's a habit, right? They're in the habit of having Friday night shrimp cocktail, you know, stupid thing. I want to tell you something unbelievable. You know, when Avraham Avinu saw the 3 angels, 3 pagans, he says to them, Yukach no mat mayim, take a little bit of water, v'rachatzu raglechem, and wash your feet. And you know, a habit in Hebrew is also called hergel. So, what all the Rebbe said is the same thing. As Avraham Avinu says, before anything, wash off your habits. Wash off your habits. Okay, remember Pesach, it had to be that night. Because if you wait, you never go out. So he says the beginning in beginning of becoming a Yid, anything in the world, if at this moment you have an awakening, just do it. But after that, go slow. You know, it took us 40 years to get to Israel. But getting out of Egypt, you don't go out 40 years. It's one night. Has to be fast. You know what it is? This is very important. Okay, I have an awakening, I want to learn. What do? You go home and call up your friends, you know, I just decided I should learn every day. Then I sit down with my wife, and she brings me some cheesecake, and I will discuss with her what I should learn, and then we go to sleep. How does it sound to you? The first thing, your mamish have to do it. That's the first thing. Imagine I decide I want to learn, so take a book and learn. You don't have to learn for 10 years, but right now, just for the moment, there's a Gewalt Teure from the Ramban, which is very important to know. What is this awakening inside of me that I want to do something better. It's a great light shining, right? And then when I'm doing it, my doing becomes the vessel for this great light. They said, you know why most people have such good ideas, nothing ever happens? Because until they make a vessel for it, the light is gone. So what a person has to do, when they have an awakening, make a vessel right now. Remember, we're learning it a lot of times. Why is it so important that you should always have a sefer, a holy book in your hands? Imagine I'm going on 5th Avenue and 43rd Street, and suddenly have an awakening. From now on, I want to learn more. So, I'm not even crossing the street. I'm standing there, and I'm beginning to learn right this minute. Because I have to make a vessel for it. Or imagine something else. I'm walking down 5th Avenue, I see all those airlines, and I think, I'm going to Acapulco, right? Well then, coming to Rockefeller Center, there's El Al. I suddenly had this awakening. I'm not going to Acapulco. I'm going to Israel. You have a sefer? You better sit down, right? Make a vessel for that light you have. Because until I got home, I forget it already. But you also don't expect yourself to be the Baal Shem Tov the next morning. That's another mistake. You see, you know why so many people don't keep Yom Kippur, their promises? I'm coming to Shul and say, from now on I'll be mamash very holy. And I expect the next morning to wake up, I'm the Baal Shem, I'm not. I'm the same creep as before. Something happened to me, God opened doors for me. But now you have to start working on it. So you have to work on everything. This world is so beautiful because God wants us to do it. God wants us to do it. You know, there's a Torah from Rabbi Shlomo, not the one with the Rav Shlomo.
Not the one with the one.
He said his grandfather. He said that everybody wants to be the biggest Talmud scholar in one night, and that one night he wants to sleep. Think about that. I'll tell you something else. I want to be the greatest Talmud scholar in the world. Would you believe it? I learned one page. So therefore, the Talmud has 63 volumes. I have to tell you something in honor of Tzvi Nomi. I want you to know that basically the Talmud is 60 volumes. Because some say like, all the Sulam is one. You marry a woman with a ring, right? I think we're talking about the Samach under the Chuppah, don't remember yet. Samach, right? Because the Gemara says, until you find your soulmate, you really don't understand the Torah. So when a person gets married, he gives his wife a Samach. Thank you that because of you, now I'll be able to understand the 60 volumes of the Talmud. That's very beautiful, huh? Samach. Or in a very deep sense, you know, I want you to know something, you know. Why did Adam eat the tree of knowledge? Because the truth is that he thought that Chava is his Rebbe. And Ishbaz is all Torah and the Zohar Kodesh. That he thought that Chava is his Rebbe. And you know, the Torah says, Sanhedrin, the Haikol Yushlaim, even if they tell you about left it's right, about right it's left, you have to listen to them. So he knew that if my Rebbe tells me to eat, so I have to listen. You know, by Avram and Chava and Sorah, God says to Avram, whatever Sorah says to you, you have to listen. Because Avram and Sorah, they really like the way God wanted the world to be. That the woman is really the Rebbe of the man. The only thing is, you see, but Chava, because Chava didn't say on her own to her husband, eat the tree of knowledge, she was already under the influence of the snake. It wasn't even Chava, right? Imagine I'll dope up Chavaki with some a little bit shishes to schwach, a little bit something stronger, and and she will talk, right? It's not my Rebbe talking.
Did Adam Rishon know that?
So you see, Mamash David Yagavald, David, other Mauritians thought he had to listen to Chavak. But anyway.
But no, I'm saying, did he know that it was Brother Snake? He wasn't around the whole Peshet of the snake. In other words, how does he know that it's Chava? How does he know that it's Brother Snake, which he didn't even meet yet?
I don't know. This Mamash David, he asked me a very deep question. I don't know the answer. I have to look it up, maybe in B'Syagim Bereishis. So you see what I tell my wife, I said to her, Mamash, I'm sure you are cleansed from the influence of the snake. So Mamash, you are for me like the 60 volumes of the Gemara, right? Mamash, I listen to you. Go out. Really a very high level.
Shirshim, Yom Chasinas, Yom Simchas Liba is Kabbalah Satara.
Yeah.
It's also Yom Chasinas.
Go out. Yud right, and Shirshim, the wedding day is called the day of the receiving of the Torah, yeah. Okay, so first I do fast, and I'm breaking my habit. And this is very hard. And you know, to break my habit, one time I can. But the question is, can you break it for a long time? This is a long time work. You know, everybody knows anything which is for 1 minute, anybody can do. And I want you to open your heart. What is the whole thing of Amalek? You know, Amalek is the arch evil, the biggest enemy of mankind. Because Amalek comes to you and he says, one time I can also do it, but for a long time I can't, and you can't either. Remember, Asa was coming to Yaakov and said, oh, you're so frummy, you're super frummy, I see you're learning. I'd love to see how long it'll last. Remember, we're learning it. Everybody has from time to time a little soul attack. One day I'm from, I tell you this, he little walks into a treif restaurant, and you know today you have kosher dishes, also a non-kosher restaurant. He says, every night he asks for shrimp cocktail. This time he walks in there and he asks for gefilte fish. So the waiter says, what's happening to you? You're not eating shrimps anymore? He says, no, he says, I have your side after my father. And in his honor, I'm going to eat gefilte fish. Okay. After he eats the gefilte fish, he says, bring me another portion of gefilte fish. So the waiter says, wow, you have yours after your mother also? And he says, no. He says, but my father was very religious. So you hear, friends, Amalek says to you, it won't last. So the first day, I have to fight mamish, really fight my way to the first time. It's excellent feature. And what is this keeping it up? That's like Sfiras Ha'ayim, counting the days. Baruch Hashem, I'm on it already for 1 day, for 2 days, for 3 days. Just, you have to keep it up. Okay, then something very important. Whenever you do a mitzvah, you do something, it's beautiful you're doing it, but it's more beautiful if you know for whom you're doing it. That means God, when He gave us a mitzvah, He not only gives us the mitzvah to do it, also something is shining from heaven that gives me a little bit more of a God knowledge. You know, some people walk around saying, I want to know all about God, but they don't want to do anything for God. When is God shining into me? I should have a little concept what God is all about. when they do something good. Right? You know, imagine I know nothing about God, and I'm going to the library, and I say, I'm going to read some books on God. Who cares? You have nothing else to do, Mazel tov. If you really mean it, go out on the street, give every poor man something, and each time you give something, God will shine into you that there's one God. Because it's not even a reward, but it's already included in the package. To do a mitzvah, mamish at that moment is shining into me that there's one God. So here Tzedakah Cohen says, whenever you do a mitzvah, you make a bracha first. What's the bracha all about? The bracha is thanking you for the mitzvah, and at that moment when I make the bracha, God is shining into me. God is shining into me that the mamish know I'm doing it for God. You know what it says in Tanya? Something very important. Imagine somebody unimportant gets a call from the English Queen. Can you please go? I'll pay you back the money. Get me like a little bit cornflakes from New York. Bring it to London. You know, this person blows his mind. Queen of England. This cornflakes is not really important, but I'm doing something for her, right? He says, Rabbi Shlomo tells us to do something. It's mind-blowing. This is mind-blowing. So he says the bracha is, I can't believe it, God is telling me to do something. It gives me so much, first of all, it gives me so much inner pride. I want you to know something. With all honesty, most of us don't respect ourselves. How much do I respect myself? This is a term of Gamzusha, but it's like a classic term. Yeah, I know. Fine. Nothing left. Give me just, what time is it now?
1:30.
1:30?
Yeah.
There's something wrong with my watch, you know?
After half an hour or so.
Yeah. Okay, let me just finish. Have a mamash, I need strong brochas tonight. I really have a big concert. Although it's only maybe a half hour, but I really cannot afford to fall asleep in the middle of singing. Yeah? Unless it's taped. You know what I always say? I have a tape recorder under my bed all night. I want to see if I snore on the beat. If I snore on the beat, then I'm not worried. Then I'm not snoring on the beat and get worried. Then I call the next morning Charlotte. I say there's something wrong with me emotionally. Yesterday morning we were learning. I don't know some of you were there. What's the bracha? You know, by a mitzvah, it's a great light of God, right? But it's contracted in this physical action, right? I'm putting on tzitzis, it's a physical act. I take the shirt with the tzitzis and put it on, right? Basically, it's the greatest light from heaven. Tzitzis, gewalt. Tala shekulut cheles, awesome, right? And it's so contracted, it's a physical act. What's the bracha all about? The bracha is, you know, it's contracted, but when I make the bracha, I uncontract it. Say, Rabbi Shlomo, you know, I want to have a taste of the infiniteness of the light of the mitzvah. Rabbi Shlomo, give me a taste. You know when you make a bracha, after that you taste mamash, the infiniteness of the mitzvah. It's not to be believed. We were learning yesterday, maybe some of you weren't there, but it's very important. Want you to know something? If you would have never eaten from the tree of knowledge, Mamish, I could eat one apple and would probably be alive for a year. Because basically, God's world is infinite. You know how much energy one apple has, one piece of bread? It is only because the tree of knowledge that food closed down on us. The whole world closed down on us. So I eat an apple, 10 minutes later I'm hungry again. I eat something, and a few hours I have to eat again. So you see, when I make a bracha, I say, Rabbi Shlomo, open the inside. You know, all the tzaddikim, how did they last? Some rabbis ate, I don't know, half a kazayas all day. Right? Because the way they make the bracha, mamish, then this piece of bread opens up to them, like on the level of tree of life, and it's a long time, right? You know, the Holy Baal Shem literally fasted from Shabbos to Shabbos. And this is what Rabbi Melech said. Rabbi Melech said, you know, the Baal Shem was against fasting and mortifying your flesh. Baal Shem always says, there's a Torah on the Baal Shem, what has your body done you wrong that you never put pain on it? And besides, he said, the body doesn't belong to you. You always think my body doesn't belong to me. God gave my neshama a garment which is called body, and have to serve as his bodyguard. But who am I to inflict pain on it, right? You know how much the Baal Shem was against fasting, and you know, some people would put their hands in fire, and they think this is gewalt, they holify themselves, you know, it doesn't go this way. But the Baal Shem, Rabbi Melech says, you know what the Baal Shem didn't eat? He wasn't hungry. You know, when he ate Shabbos, gewalt, right? Can you imagine what kind of a bracha the Baal Shem made over the children on Shabbos? He didn't eat it. And besides, he says the Baal Shem during the week he was so connected to the highest energy in heaven. You know, I have to tell you something very important. Remember learning it. Yom Kippur is not, we're not eating because God wants to mortify our flesh. Because on Yom Kippur we are connected to such high energy in heaven that we don't need the food. What? Oh yeah, right. I forgot already the Torah, yeah. You know that my joke from Intravenous, yeah, it's a must. I tell you. A Yidel is in the hospital number and he's fed intravenous. He calls in the nurse. He says, do you have a lot of those machines here? He says, we have hundreds. Why are you asking? He says, I invited 2 Yidden for lunch.
Have to figure out what that is.